I'm Cindy Bokser, and you are listening to the Fiber Artist Podcast, where we chat with artists, makers, and creatives who work with fiber, get to know their stories, how they came upon their fiber practice, and more about the person behind the work. On today's episode, I chat with Meagan Alessio, one of the most playful and experimental fiber artists I've come across. She weaves, embroiders, needle felts, and makes the most incredible felted creatures, both real animals and also imaginary mermaid hybrids that she calls mermals. She's a mom and maker extraordinaire, and she's got something huge up her sleeve for the fall, so keep an eye on her. Meagan can be found on Instagram at Meagan Alessio and on Etsy under the shop name Meagan Alessio Vintage. Here's the episode. Hi, Meagan. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's such a pleasure to be able to finally talk to you and put a face to the name and to the art. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I'm so excited to actually talk to you now.
Yay. Okay, so I guess, let's really just kind of start with the basics. Where are you from and where do you live right now? And do you have kids? And what's your sort of living situation like right now?
All right. So the rundown on me right now, I'm from Canada, from Alberta. Mm-hmm. So I was born in Edmonton, going way back, but I've always been around the Calgary area for the last 8 years now.
Okay.
So I've kind of been in this one area, and yeah, I've got 2 kids. They're almost 4 and 5, but Tommy and Mickey. They just got out of the house 1 minute ago, so it's a bit of a disaster, everything beyond what you can see here, but that's okay. And yeah. Sorry.
Awesome. So let's go way back. So I did realize that I have been following you on Instagram probably since 2015 or 14 maybe. And I even own some of your work, and I have never really ever gotten to know like who you are and how you started and everything. So I would love to hear, what were you like as a kid, and have you always been creative, and just hearing your journey all the way up to finding, your fiber art practice.
Definitely. So I was definitely a crafty kid, like always making something, and there wasn't a box or anything untouched in the house or covered in nail polish like my poor parents. So my sisters and I would embellish everything.
Bedazzled,
glitter, nail polish, pretty much any little bit of art we could do. And my grandma was an artist, so we've had my mom's an amazing artist.
Mm-hmm. So it definitely runs in the family.
Yeah. And it's just always been, that was our go-to activity, was to make something, like make a paper house or something. We're always making something. Our craft supplies were like overflowing, but it was always crafts, like little things that you'd make. And I didn't really consider myself an artist for a really, really long time, which was fine. I never really thought about it, but I was just like, I love crafting. If I could just get paid to make crafts all day, I would be so happy. I would always say that. And so, yeah, now I'm kind of doing it. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. So did you go to school for it, or so what did your sort of, your high school life look like? And then if you went to college after that, I'm not sure, but take me up until that point.
So up until when I was 17, I started apprenticing at a hair salon.
Oh, cool.
And from then until I had my first son, I was a hairdresser.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, which comes in really handy a lot of times with the fiber art.
Definitely.
Fringe.
No, totally. There's such crossover. I am actually seeing that a lot of people who are hairstylists get into this craft or into crochet. I've noticed there is a lot of crossover.
I think so. It's a very tactile, and you're kind of using the same, not skill set, but that same sort of feel, like you're making something out of just threads, basically.
Right, fibers, exactly, totally.
Fiber. So there is a lot of crossover. But yeah, I went to hair school.
Okay.
And then after I got pregnant with my son, I was kind of wanting an out anyway. I was like kind of my back was hurting. I was only 26. And it was it's hard on your body.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to go on mat leave when I have my baby. and I've never gone back. So
Awesome. Maternity leave in Canada, is that a full year? Do you get?
it is a full year. It's actually 18 months now,
Oh, that's so nice.
but it was a year when I went. So
Yeah.
that way.
So then how did you pick up fiber art? What was the first kind of piece you made or the first technique you used or type that you got into first?
Bringing it back to when my son was born, when I was pregnant with him, I was trying to find a cute mobile.
Mm-hmm.
And I always have made like little Sculpey or Fimo, the polymer clay kind of things, and just like with little sculpture and stuff. But I was seeing all these really cute fuzzy mobiles on Etsy, and just I don't think Instagram was a thing really then yet, or I wasn't on it yet.
Right.
So I would see these little things, and I didn't have any idea how to make them. So I just kind of started Googling and was like, oh, like I could probably figure that out. And that was needle felting. And that was, as soon as I did it, I made like a little, I think a cat was my first one. And it was just like magic, like poking wool with one little needle, and it made a whole sculpture. And they're always cute. They're these fuzzy little things. And I was hooked from then. And I think I started putting them on Instagram. And it was back in the day, like 5 years ago.
But even then, it felt like there was only like 10 fiber people on Instagram at the time.
And I would do like the 4-square grid with like a border, like a colorful background, just horribly edited pictures of my little animals. And people started being like, oh, that's cute. Can you make one for me? Or can you do this? And so I just kind of slowly progressed from there.
Oh, interesting. See, I didn't realize that you started with the needle felted animals, because I think when I found you, I really distinctly remember when I found you, because you posted this mint green weave. It was a woven tapestry made out of cashmere, and it blew my mind.
Mohair.
Oh, mohair. Yes. Mohair. Yes. Yeah. No, but it blew my mind because that was the first ethereal piece I'd really come across. Aww. And so, I think like right after that, I was like, I want to try mohair. Like it's so pretty. It was so light and fluffy and just like really beautiful and translucent in a way. And, I remember like I saved that image and I was like, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. I really want to try it. And I think you added even like little pom-poms to it, maybe. I might be making that up. But
a little gold pom-pom on it.
Yes. And so I remember trying mohair after that. But then I was like, oh, I'm following this girl. Then everything else you posted, it was just so beautiful. And I didn't even look back, like to scroll back to see how that you had started with the needle felted animals. Oh, how funny.
Yeah.
So then when did you get into weaving, and how? Like did you take a class or did you learn online?
It was totally like a one afternoon. I think my sister was the one that was like, we kind of started finding a few fiber artists on Instagram, and we're like, oh, this looks cool. Like I really like, and this, like, there were no weavers on Instagram 5 years ago, or like very few that were accessible to everyone. Like I didn't even know what to search or anything. If you searched weave, it would just come up with a bunch of hair pieces.
Yeah, totally. So, like extensions.
Yeah, exactly. So we found these few things and we're like, oh, we should like play around with it. It was another craft for me, like another fun little thing to try.
Yeah.
And I took like a little stick and just like looped the string over. I didn't have a loom or anything. And I used all these scrap bits of roving from my felting and little bits of thread and just made this like hideous, but like little, like this big weave. And I was like, oh, that was fun. And from there, I made myself a loom out of a picture frame. And then I just got obsessed, as I usually do with any new craft. And it went from there. So I was weaving all the time on a tapestry loom. I got a real one. I got a few real ones after my picture frame nails started taking all my thread. And I was kind of obsessed for a while. And then I got a little bit burnt out from weaving. I think a lot of people did. It kind of exploded. And then I was like, I don't know what I can make that isn't already out there.
Right.
I felt I would even want to make something. And I was like, it's so similar to something I've already seen. So I'm not going to weave unless I'm like, I want to weave. Like,
right.
I had a few that I made after I tapered off where I was like, I want to make this and it feels good to make it. But I was kind of over the making a custom order for someone or something where when they would send me a picture that someone else had made.
Right.
They'd be like, I love this. Can you make me this? And it's like, no, I can't. It started to feel like I wasn't being an artist anymore. It felt like I was just making things.
Right.
So that's when I just started kind of experimenting, which somehow led me back around to needle felting, which I'm doing a lot of now. But I was doing a lot of wrapped fiber pieces. I played with resin a lot, all kinds of stuff. I'm so all over the place.
That I know, but that's what I really like that about your work is that, you know, it may not have like a completely cohesive theme as far as the type of fiber art that you're practicing, but there is some element of you that's completely in every single piece where you can tell that it's still you, which is so interesting. Like I don't know how people do that actually. It's like to cross over craft, but then you can totally see someone's perspective in it, which is really cool.
Yeah. I'm always jealous of people that can make a similar thing where you see a picture and you don't even have to look at the cat, know who it is, and they make not the same thing over and over, but it's like their style. And I'm like, I'll be like, I found it. This is what I love. And 2 weeks later, I'm like, oh,
yeah, so enough of that. All right. So let's take it back for a second to needle felting. And how did you learn how to do that?
I went on Etsy after I searched a few things. I think I just searched needle felting kit, and I got a little one. And it had like a little felting block. It had a little bit of wool. It had a few needles, and that's all you need. That's it. That's all needle felting is one single needle.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's one little barbed needle. It's actually meant for a machine, so it's has like a little hook on the end, and you just poke the wool. And I got obsessed with it. So, and then from then, of course I needed all the colors. So 2 weeks into it, I had ordered like hundreds of dollars of supplies online.
Of course.
But I was pregnant and hormonal with my first son, so it was excusable. That was like my outlet.
Well, and that's in a way like a way to nest too, I think.
It was total nesting that started it all.
Yeah, especially when you're working with roving because it's so soft and
it is.
You know, it has that whole comfort thing to it.
And I just started I started making these little, I was like, oh, the Christmas ornaments or whatever. And then I made a mobile from there, little owls and stuff. And it was so natural to me because it was a sculpture. I always work better in like a 3D sort of thing. I like drawing and painting and that sort of stuff, but it's not like when I'm holding something in my hand and I'm making it, then I feel like I'm doing something that I should be doing. I don't feel like I'm copying anyone. Right. When I'm making a sculpture, it's like this just came from me. I can't look at anything. I don't have someone else's sculpture to look at. So I feel more authentic when I'm making 3D sort of forms.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, even your two-dimensional pieces have like a 3D element to them most of the time.
They do.
I realize. Usually. I mean, even I bought an embroidery piece from you, and then there's like a strands of thread that are coming down over it's a framed piece, and then there are the strands of thread that are coming down over the, over what it's supposed to be the set plane, which I thought was so unique and beautiful. So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, less more is definitely not my strong suit. I'll be making something. I'm like, you know what this needs? Like 16 more kinds of fiber. Yeah. I just cannot stop. So that's one thing that I've gotten a little bit better at is being like stepping away for a day or something. Cause I just like, if I could put glitter on everything, I would.
That's awesome. You're a fiber maximalist.
I am a maximalist for sure. When it comes to art and like even I can't do my nails. Like I'll end up with 17 coats of glitter and I'm in my 30s. Like it's just anymore. So I need to tone it down on that level.
Nah, that's awesome. More power to you.
Yeah.
So right now is your creative? Would you consider your creative work a full business for you right now, or do you consider it sort of side thing or a hobby?
I would say it's a cross between hobby because I love doing it, and like I'm lucky that I have a husband who's out with the kids now, and he works full time, so I am first and foremost a stay-at-home mom. And so I just make things when I can. So it's not a job where it's like I have to go there and I have to get this done. It's always like when I can do it.
Right.
If I make lots, great. If I can't, my kids are alive, so I made it through the day.
Yeah.
You know, very I have a lot of freedom with it that way. So no, it's certainly not a full-time job. I would love for it to turn into something once my kids are a bit older and they're in full-time school and I have more time. That would be my dream, would be to have to pay taxes because I sell so many things.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
that can come with its whole other set of troubles.
Yeah.
There,
I mean, it kind of seems like because you have the freedom right now to create as you want to, and there's not a huge pressure to meet any deadlines or, I don't know. Are you taking any made to order pieces or anything like that? Do you ever take custom work like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So sometimes you do have your deadlines.
Yes. I always give people, like, for instance, the little felted dogs that I make and that, I always tell people like 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, good.
Or something, like a long deadline. So if I need to order wool and I've got no one at home and I can't take my kids to this, like, it gives me a little bit of a buffer. So even if I do have to work with a deadline, it's like, okay, I don't have to, like, kids, go in the basement while I get this done. It's still I can work on it a few minutes at a time.
Okay.
I love doing it that way. I know it's not practical for forever.
I think it's whatever you can make happen for you. You know, everybody has a different life situation, and certainly people with kids, and myself included, like unless my in-laws take my kids for the weekend, it is doing like bits here and there. And it's not always, it's like I would much prefer to just marathon my way through it, but like that's impossible.
Definitely. Yeah. That's exactly how mine is. I'll do things 5 minutes at a time, but it's an interrupted 5 minutes where, Mom, can you change the channel? Mom, can you do this? And so if I had a full day, I could accomplish so much more than I can in my 5-10 minute intervals.
Exactly.
But that's life right now. It's going to change. The kids are going to be in school in a couple of years. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
So it's good right now.
Yeah, and you still produce, like, I still feel like you produce a lot of work. So
I think I do. I'll feel like, oh, I haven't done anything, and then I'll look at my Instagram. I'm like, oh, I made all these things, and they're already gone. Like, they're out in the world, and maybe that's why I feel like I don't make anything, because I don't have it here with me anymore. Like, a lot of work goes into those little dogs. I have to remind myself that that's hours and hours of work.
Yeah. And your animals, I don't know. For those of you listening, you need to follow Meagan Alessio on Instagram and check out her felted animals, because they're so expressive, and I don't understand how you get their expression. Like, they look real. Every time you post one, it looks like a photograph of a real animal, like pet portraits. But then you realize that they're felted, and it's like, it blows my mind every time.
Oh, thank you. I always try to put something in the picture for scale, like either my hand or a thread spool or something, so people, because I find on the ones that look realistic, I don't get as many likes on Instagram. Because they
just think it's a picture of your dog.
I posted a picture of a random dog, so I'll have to put something back. So I'm like, I made this.
Oh my gosh, it's too cool. So what is your creative process like? I mean, I think I mean, we've talked about how it's you have to do it in bits at a time, but like when you're thinking about what to create, how does it come to you? Like, how does inspiration come to you?
So depending on what I'm working on, I do a lot of these dog portraits for people. So that's a bit different. That's more of like a business. They send me the pictures. I don't really have a lot of, people are so nice. Like, they give me so much creative freedom, as much as you can have with a dog. I've never had someone like, I wanted this and this and this. Like, I make them little toys and stuff, so that's just fun. But when I'm doing a piece that's just for me or just something that I want to make, generally it's like one little thing will get in my head and I'll just have to go do it. So I'm really bad at writing an idea down or sketching or anything. I just I'll see like a little sequin or something. I'm like, I need to make a mermaid tail like right now. And I'll just start. And then I never have a full plan of how a project is finishing. I'll start with something, it turns into something else, but it always just kind of evolves from there. I don't really, I'm not a planner.
Yeah. It's cool. Like I don't know, you can almost see that. I don't know, because I feel like there's a lot of freedom in your work. So it seems like I don't know, there's this sort of looseness in the creativity of it. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but it's beautiful.
I'm very inspired by the materials all the time. It's, I feel like I always use materials where it's either like I'll find them from a cool like independent store, or else vintage stuff. I use a ton of vintage in my work, or people will give me things, like other artists have given me like bags of, little scrap materials or something. And when I see it, then I know what it should be. I don't usually plan things out.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'll just have different thread colors lying around. I'm like, oh, I need to wrap that around a rope or something. It's just the materials.
They speak to you.
Kind of speak up for themselves. So I can't even take full credit because I'm like, they're just pretty anyway. Like when I make a weaving, like, of course it's going to look pretty. It's made out of all these beautiful things. I feel like the people that made the material should get more credit than me slapping them together. Almost is how I feel a lot of the time.
That's a beautiful way to think about it, because there are so many steps that come before us getting our hands on them, you know, and especially when you think about wool. I mean, wool and cotton and everything that it takes to go into, creating those materials. It's so true.
Oh, absolutely. I started to appreciate that a lot more too as I got more into it. But when I first started, it was like anything, like go to a craft store, buy a bunch of cheap acrylic wool, or not wool, but wool looking things, and slap it together. But which was great. I mean, how else do you learn? You can't learn with the finest quality things. That would be kind of a waste to
totally
put it on my first projects that were horrible. But now that I'm more into it, and like, things have to be special to make the art piece special.
Right.
So I've whittled down my collection a lot, but the quality and the like emotional bond I have with my materials is pretty strong. Like I would be pretty devastated if something happened to my stash.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So when you're creating, do you ever get stuck creatively? And if you do, how do you get yourself out of it?
Not really. That sounds kind of no, I'm just amazing and I never get but I don't really. Sometimes I'll make something and it won't turn out exactly, but I just make something else.
Yeah.
I recently I was doing these like felted bowls and that kind of stuff, and I made a small one, and the form collapsed when it was in the dryer getting felted. But I got it out. I'm like, oh, but that's so pretty. Like it was like a weird egg, and then I made a whole wall hanging out of it, which I would have never made or thought of making if it didn't collapse.
Right.
So I just kind of go with it. Sometimes I don't use it right away, but I'm like, oh, well, that was fun. I learned something. Now I'll move on and do something else.
Totally. You're a true artist in that sense. So that's awesome. What do you do while you're creating? Do you listen to anything or watch anything, or is it too much taking care of the kids while you're doing it?
When I'm alone and creating, which doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's like the happiest I've ever. It's so nice to be just in my own house, being able to have all my materials.
Yes.
And just no one grabbing at them. It's so nice to do that. So I do listen to music, or else I'll have on just like daytime TV in the background or something, like just some noise on. But yeah, I can make from morning till night if I don't have those darn responsibilities of children.
I know. those precious days.
Go.
Those precious days when for whatever reason the kids are not there. I mean, yeah, I totally understand that. You just like have a marathon, right?
And that's my idea of a vacation, is me in my own house without other people here.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that.
Once you're a mom, you don't get that. It's bizarre being alone in your house. And so that's my favorite thing to do, is if I don't have them, put on something usually background noise. I don't even listen to it and just get making.
Yeah. Yep. So beyond Instagram, are there other ways that you market your work?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. It's one of my excuses is just the lack of time right now. I would like to get out there a little bit more in real life, like just with other artists, and because it's a little bit isolating sometimes.
Of course.
Being an artist and working from home and then selling things from my home. I don't like go to a gallery and drop my things off and talk to humans. I'm behind my computer and I go to the post office to send things, but that's about it.
Right.
So that is one of my goals. Once I have a little bit more time and I can get a few pieces together, I would love to reach out a little bit more in my human form. So people know who I am.
Do you teach at all, or do you teach workshops in your area?
I've done a few like student workshops for younger kids. I think they would have been from about grade 7 to 9. I've done a few years in a row now. I've taught a few workshops.
Cool.
So that is one other thing that I'm really open to as well. But it's lack of time right now. Yeah. And I love teaching it though. Teaching needle felting and teaching it to kids is really cool to see, because it's a very sharp needle and you're giving it to this like 13-year-old boy, but then the room just goes silent. Like kids get just engrossed because you're just stabbing wool. You have to pay attention or you'll stab yourself. And they just like go into a zone. It's so like meditative, and it's a very now with fidget spinners and stuff. It's like it's a fidget spinner that you're focused on it and you're making something though. So I would love to teach a little bit more once I can maybe have some childcare or
yeah, totally, or even like just videos of you making an animal from like start to finish. I would definitely pay money to see that.
I've thought about doing that too, which is I need to get a time where I'm not making things 5 minutes at a time, because I tried to do it one time, and so I have my camera set up and then I'm making something. And then I tried to get the camera set up this sort of similar way, and just everything's different. Like it would be the choppiest, worst video ever to watch.
Right. No, I know. It's hard to create these videos. And
that's on the bucket list too, though, is to do some videos and tutorials.
Yeah. How long does it take you to make, for example, one of your pet, like a dog?
A dog is generally about 4 to 6 hours of work. So that and that's just for the dog. And then the whole process altogether, including, I make a little dog toy with it, of course, and a rug, which usually gets like embroidered and fringe on it because I get ridiculous with things. And then
awesome. They're so complete. I love it.
Yeah. Hand paint a little box with their name on it to send out, and then wrap it all up. So altogether, it's probably about 9 hours of work goes into, depending on how hard it was to make the dog, what their fur looks like, all this stuff. Yeah, it's a long time to make those little guys.
Yeah, and the package, the whole entire package is so thoughtful. I think that's like so important, and you really take a lot of time on that. Yeah.
Thank you. I do. I try really hard to make it, because they're not cheap either, and I don't want people to feel like they've ever purchased something and it doesn't show up presented properly, because that kind of ruins the whole experience. If you just got like it's an adorable dog, but it got sent to you in a Ziploc baggie, like it would totally ruin the whole. It's like, I didn't really get it that much. I have a dog. He's right over there and he's so sweet, but I didn't really get the whole, how emotionally people get attached to these little creations until I started making one of my own dog, because I've never made one of him. And then I'm looking, I'm like, oh, like it just melts your heart.
Completely.
It's them. It is them in a little form. So I kind of get it more now. And I like put so much, I'll send my friends pictures of these dogs that I'm making. They're like, give me a break, man. Like, stop sending me pictures of random people's dogs that you're felting. I'm like, look how cute he is.
No, and they are so precious. Like I can't, because you give them these facial expressions that I can't even really explain it over a podcast. People just have to see them. Like they're inquisitive. They look inquisitive, or they look, whatever, like those looks that dogs give you when they tilt their head and like
the puppy dog eyes.
Yeah, totally. It's so
I
cool.
try to make the eyes really expressive, but I'm glad that it's working. That's nice to hear.
Yeah. Wait, so what do you do to package them up? You do a hand-painted box? I think I'm asking because I think it's important for people to also keep in mind that, like, I think a lot of us, I think myself included, once you're done with a piece, like with a macrame piece, it's like, oh my God, I have to take all this extra time to package it. And like, you kind of just want to get it out the door, but
it is work.
Yeah. But to really put thought and time and effort into the packaging, I think it is really important. So tell me, what do you do to package yours up?
Okay, so once I finish them, then I have like a big supply of boxes that I'll find wherever I can if I am at a craft store or something. So they're not always exactly the same, but it's usually like a sturdy cardboard box in more of like a formed box though, so it's nice and sturdy. And I'll just find them so I can paint on them. And I'll have a bunch of different sizes. So once I'm done making the dog and I make his little blanket, I find the box that'll fit it the best without squishing anything. And then I'll hand paint. I shouldn't be saying this out loud. Now I'm realizing how ridiculous my process is. And then I hand paint their name on the box, or I'll draw, like one dog's name was Spoon, so I painted like a spoon on it. And like, I'll totally personalize the little box. But I never really have told people that much about the packaging. So when people get it, it's like, I gotta, like, it feels like so much extra.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Whenever people receive their package, they always tell me like, oh my God, that box was so perfect. Thank you for putting that little toy in it. Like,
it's so special to open and receive.
Yeah, it feels like a little present, I think, from me too, if I give them a box that's like, I made this just for you. It's not a box that I just put all my dogs in. It's something that was made after your little dog was actually made. Right. So I feel like you can feel the specialness in them when you get them.
Totally. Oh, that's so cool. So we sort of touched on the other kinds of fiber arts things that you do. Did we name them all? So embroidery, weaving.
A little bit of embroidery, weaving, I guess felting. I make a lot of, I'm just like looking around my house at things that I've made so I can, like just tassels and that kind of stuff. I don't even know what that kind of fiber art is called. I just make stuff out of it.
Okay.
I'm very unskilled at fiber arts though. Like I have no skill set. I can't crochet. I can't knit. I can't weave on a real loom. Like I don't know how to do any real things. I'm a very just wing it, make whatever I want. Maybe I'll watch like a tutorial on something, but I would rather just figure it out on my own.
That's awesome. I love that. No, because maybe there is no one right way to do it. I mean, with knitting and crochet, yes, I guess there is, but but it's different when you're doing like a full, like when you're doing like a full.
Sorry.
Oh no, sorry. I know I'm like totally talking over you. Sorry. No, but I think that's actually what makes your art particularly special is that you can see that sort of freedom of creativity, and you're not bounding yourself with patterns and that kind of thing.
Thank you. Yeah. I felt bad for a long time about not knowing how to crochet or knit or just something that's like make something useful. Because I just make like a pretty thing you put on your wall. They have no real life. They have no real life value.
Lots of value, maybe not function beyond, pure aesthetics, but
it's the world we're ending. I couldn't make a pair of socks to save my life. So that kind of stuff. But
I have a feeling you'd figure it out.
I like it that way. One thing I haven't learned on purpose is macrame. And I love it so much. I have pieces in my home, but I've almost stopped myself from learning it too much because I'm like, I will start making someone else's things. If I start doing that, like I have to not pick up a craft that's not mine right now, if that makes sense.
It does. I don't think you have to feel that way, but if you do, I mean, no. I sort of understand it just because there is so much out there, but you never know. It could open doors to adding it to some of your other works or whatnot,
Yeah, I feel like there would be a total space for it in a lot of things that I make.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I've stopped myself from looking up tutorials sometimes just because I'm like, you have to finish what you've started too. Like I'm trying to stop myself from having 8 million things on the go. So, but I'm sure I'll dip into it fairly soon.
That was actually one of the questions I was going to ask. Like, is there something creative that you've been wanting to try that you haven't tried yet?
So many things. Like, oh, the list it goes on and on. Actually, I have a list on my phone. I'll think of something and I'm like, oh, I got to do this. And so I just have a long list of things I'll never make.
Like what? Like, what do you want to try? What do you want to try?
There's different mobiles and animals and focused on the felting stuff that I want to make. And that's just a lack of time. Like it's always on the to-do list. And then I get a commission or I get another idea that I have to make. There's a lot of collaboration that I would like to do.
Yeah.
And I feel too guilty right now to really pursue that because I have a collaboration going right now with my sister that's been months and months that I haven't even worked on because it's just too hard to find the focus time on it because I want to give my all to it. So I would love to do some more collaborations and reach out to a few more artists because I love bouncing ideas off of people, and you just make something that you would never come up with on your own, but it's still yours.
Yeah.
So that's really on my list, is to reach out a little bit more, and maybe I just have to do it, and we both accept that it might take months, but it'll get done. So I would love to do that.
Well, and that's how those things work, kind of like if you're forced to or just if you have some accountability behind it, then it forces you to, like, if you say yes to something, then you will do it. You make time for those kinds of things, even though it feels daunting at first. But then that's like, what other way is there to get anything done? I feel like we'd put everything off forever if we didn't just say, okay.
Yeah. That's one thing I'd like to do. And also, when you're touching on before, all the tutorials and that kind of stuff, I think I would really enjoy doing that once I got going.
Yeah.
So, look into that more, like even just getting the equipment to do it.
Yeah.
Like a tripod for my iPhone. I don't have one. That would be such an easy thing to get. And I feel like it would snowball from there. So that's on the list of to-do things. I might kind of scale back on making these random pieces just so I can focus on one thing a little bit more. But it's going to be summertime soon. I'll be busy, so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, maybe in the fall and in the winter when everyone's just staying inside doing, needing something to do. Exactly. What is the collaboration you're doing with your sister? Because I've seen some of her art that you've posted on Instagram, and she's also a wonderful artist.
She is an amazing artist. She does mainly single line drawings, and now she's adding a lot of dried floral to her pieces.
Oh, cool.
It's so beautiful. She's one of my favorite artists, even if she wasn't my sister. That's hers right up there.
I know, I recognized it, actually. I remember.
Yeah. So we've done a few collabs before where she actually drew the pictures for things that I've woven. So I did a series of woven tapestries with embroidered hands on them. And those are all her drawings that she let me use for them. Oh, and then we've done a few where she's done a single line drawing painting and I've embroidered them over top onto the canvas. So we're working on a few bigger ones right now,
those sound incredible.
Yeah, they're larger canvases, and I'm like halfway done the last one, but I just need that committed time to make it look. It's a little bit more daunting when it's a collaboration, because if I screw up something of my own, it's like, well, I'll throw that in the bin or whatever. But if someone else has already done all the work of making this beautiful painting, and then I'm going to wreck it with one wrong needle hole, like I need focus for that. So we're working on that right now, and I'd love to do more collaborations with her. She's my best friend and the best person for me to talk to about art, because we can be like, that's dumb.
Yeah. Brutal honesty, right?
Or no, that didn't turn out the way we wanted to. Like, it's just such an easy honesty. So it's nice to have that.
Oh my gosh. I hope you can put your fears aside as far as ruining her work, because I think the final product of that is going to be so cool. And I kind of want to buy one. So
I'll let you know when they're done.
So get to it.
I will. We've done a series before of smaller ones, and they were I really love doing that. That was our first time collaborating together where we actually both put the work in on one piece as opposed to like a drawing of hers that I translated into a fiber piece.
Mm-hmm.
And that went really well. We sold all of them. It was really exciting. We like had this little collection that we put out. And so I would love to do that again where we can be together. She lives in a different province than I do, so it's hard to get together and focus on it.
Right.
I love doing that. So even if I could find another artist that kind of feels the same way, collaboration is so fun, and I've just never had anything bad come from liking other people's stuff or enjoying other people's work. It's you feel like an instant bond with someone if you like their art or if you can feel like you could add something to it.
Definitely. And I think now that you're saying it, and I've never really thought about it so hard, but and I think it's a way to create something completely new too, because it's not, you can't really copy other people when it's two unique individual brains getting together and creating this one new thing, So I feel like that'd be a really good way to get out of a creative rut too.
Totally.
Is to work with someone else.
Even if it doesn't end up being an amazing piece, just to sit and bounce ideas off of each other. That's when I've come up with some of my best ideas. I'll think of something and then I'll immediately text my sister or be like, oh, we should do this, or this would be cool. And then we'll talk about it for 2 hours. And then at the end, sometimes it's like, well, that was dumb. That's not going to work. But it gets the juices flowing.
Totally.
And it gets your mind just thinking of something new.
I think that's very cool. We should all do that more often. So thinking back to when you were, for example, when you were, doing hair full time versus like where you are now in your life, do you feel somehow different or changed in a way?
Oh, yes, completely. I had a lot of life changes at the same time of when I stopped doing hair. I stopped because I was having my first son. So that was just in itself a life-changing thing. But I loved hairdressing and I loved a lot of it, but I don't really miss it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's so many things to deal with. And I found that was a little bit, I didn't realize until I was done being in that industry, how much I had to care. I had to wear hair and makeup and cute clothes every day because you're a hairdresser. People walk in, they don't want to see someone with like a 4-day-old dry shampoo top knot in their hair, right? Like it's part of the package. And I didn't really think about it. That was just my life since I was 17. So I never really thought it was a bad thing. And then once I was out and I had a little bit of freedom to not have to wear makeup, like that was it sounds a little silly right now, but that was a big thing for me to not do my hair, not do my makeup, and just have to be running around kids all day. I needed that though. Like,
I totally understand that actually, because we moved from the city to the country a few months ago,
nice.
And I mean that's a game changer in that sense too. Like unless I'm doing a podcast, this is like I don't put anything on.
Oh, exactly. Like
I haven't bought real clothes in forever, and it's very freeing.
It was really freeing, and just my self-confidence I think has gone up a lot because I'm not standing in front of a mirror all day either. Like, of course you're going to nitpick things when you're standing in front of a mirror. Like it was such having a baby and having the freedom to not be going into that sort of image-based job every day was really good for me, I think. And I didn't realize that I needed it until I got out of it.
Yeah.
So that like huge for me. I'm a really happy person now. Like I'm really positive, and just as far as it comes to like even beauty now and body positivity, that sort of thing. I'm like so freed.
It's so awesome.
So much more freedom now because of that, because of having kids and just growing up, I think, growing up that pleasing others sort of thing.
Totally.
Which it turns out people don't care.
Right.
Is what I kind of realized after. I'm like, why was I caring so much? Like people do not care. People treat me no different now that I'm not wearing a smoky eye. Like it's it was very freeing to realize that the world wasn't going to end because I didn't have concealer on.
Isn't that funny though? Like you really, and the thing is,
Yeah.
I feel like this comes with age a lot. I mean, yes, the environment completely changed. I mean, I can totally see how not having to stand in front of a mirror would change you a lot. But no, I think there's something that comes with age where you just realize that you think people are paying attention to you, but they really aren't. You know, like, and even if they are, and like you make a mistake or whatever, it's for like 1 second and then everyone moves on and nobody gives a shit, you know?
Exactly. Because I've even tried to think about, you know, if you're feeling, you know, it's late at night and you're decided to replay every mistake you've ever made and you can't sleep. But I'm really good at just being like, it doesn't matter.
Totally.
Like, I'd say that's my strongest skill.
Yeah.
Is being like, stuff rolls off my back so easily and I just don't care because it's just, I've realized how much other people don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds all very almost negative because it's like nobody cares.
No, but it's so, no, but there's so much it's so liberating to know that like nobody's hanging on your every single moment or word or whatever. And I have those moments too, like on Instagram, and I'll post something and then 3 hours later I'll be like, oh crap, I really shouldn't have said that, or like, you know, and I'll second guess it. But in reality, you know, once they scrolled past it and liked it or didn't, that was it. Like it's poof, gone. Yeah, it's gone.
But that even that in itself is kind of freeing because even now with just all Instagram is such a love-hate kind of thing, right? You probably feel that way with a lot of it too. But sometimes something that you put your heart and soul into, it's like wah wah wah. Like nobody cares.
Yeah, I got 43 likes on that. Okay.
Yeah. And then you'll make something that you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, this was a commission or something, and then it goes out and it blows up or whatever. So there's no way of knowing, so you just have to kind of be like, well, I made it. It's into the world.
Right.
Whatever.
Right. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And also that it whatever however many likes you're getting from it is not at all like whatever the actual value or quality of that piece was. You know?
Oh, absolutely.
There's so many other factors that go into it. It's like how it was photographed too, you know?
Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
It is, I will say though, as much as grief Instagram gives, like that's how I know you. Yeah. And I wouldn't sell anything if I didn't have Instagram.
Yeah. I know, same here.
I try to think of artists back before Instagram even, like that would be a lot of not even more work, but more putting yourself out there, like putting a face, going to a gallery, going somewhere and being like, do you like it? And then being to your face saying no.
No,
and that would be crushing.
I know. And think about the amount of time it would have taken to, like, you couldn't really do it as a mom, I think. Like because you'd have to be out there and, you know, getting rejected and then going to the next place and then like getting rejected and then going to the next place. And like, I mean, just the footwork and the logistics of it all would just make it impossible, you know? I think about that a lot actually. Cause my mom was very artistic too. And I'm like, if she had Etsy or Instagram in the 70s, then she totally could have done something, you know?
Absolutely. My mom was the same way. And she's getting back into it a little bit now, getting the pushing of me and my sister and both my sisters, and she's getting a little bit more confident with it. Like my mom is seriously an amazing artist. Like her drawing, her painting she's never been to school for it. She's just like a extremely skilled artist. And she's just kind of like, oh, it's nothing, you know, no, I can't show anyone that. Like, oh, I hate it. And so I feel like if she had something like this, and you get a few likes from strangers, like I remember when people first started commenting on things that weren't my friends, and I would be like, oh my God, I'm famous. You know, that first little like outside validation that like, oh, people like my thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be still making things quite as much if it weren't for
it's true.
People giving me validation through social media. Like,
yeah.
It's true. That's how you get your work out there nowadays.
Yeah. And the connections that you make, it's pretty invaluable as much as it is something I love and hate it too. It's just one of those things you have to accept.
I find the nice part is though, well, with a fiber arts community, it's 99% good, I find.
Yeah.
Like every once in a while, you'll get someone saying something snitty on there or whatever, but it's like, oh, somebody said something mean. Like, I must be getting up there.
Right.
People don't say mean things to people that they know.
Right.
So,
or people like, it's only if they're trying to kind of bring you down because you,
exactly.
Yeah.
So and it really doesn't happen within this sort of community. Like, I can't imagine being part of a different sort of Instagram community where it's more competition based.
Right.
Fiber Arts doesn't really seem that way. It's very community. Every once in a while you get someone ripping someone else off, but it doesn't even last long because everyone else has everyone else's backs too.
Yeah, it's true.
Like if people see things that are like a clear copy, it gets called out pretty quick, and I find it's a pretty supportive community on Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I've been talking with some other people on the podcast about the whole copying thing, and it's an interesting thing because it really used to I don't know, I guess it just bugged me a lot more, like if somebody copied a piece of mine. And then I realized, and I used to actually like DM them and be like, hey, that looks familiar. Would be nice if you would have said inspo from. But then I realized that it's usually like a one-off piece for them, and then they continue on their own journey, and it doesn't stay like that. The copying thing is like a one-time thing for each person. Usually it's like them learning, and then I mean, it still feels kind of crap. Sorry, go.
No, they could do it in a better way though. Like you're saying, it's when people just straight up copy something and don't do any inspo. Of course, it was like, oh, I saw this technique and I want to try it on my own, but don't be like, I invented this and it's now mine.
Right.
But I haven't had much copying because I think I just am so all over the place that people would be like, I don't even know what.
Nobody knows how to copy you.
but if I ever see, I've had a few posts that were almost like word for word copied, and I don't even know how I found them.
Oh.
It was like one was the picture and the words underneath were just ridiculously similar. And I was like, that looks so bad on you, like on the other person. Because I kind of looked at it, and of course, when you're in your own little phone world, I was like checking if she followed me, and she didn't even follow me, but she followed like a bunch of other people that were kind of with that community and stuff. And I was just like, I didn't say anything. I was just like, that's lame. And and her end piece wasn't really that similar to mine, but just it was too similar of a copy of the words in the post. But afterwards I was like, well, that was kind of cool. Like she thought my stuff was so nice that she wanted it.
It's a good that's a good way to look at it. It's not easy to think of it that way, but
and you can't make the same thing. If someone wanted to like straight up copy something I've done, like go for it, try it. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you get the same, great, because I couldn't even make it the same again.
Exactly.
Like it's a little bit freeing once you're like, oh well, what are they gonna do? I think it would be a worse copying infraction when it's like these big companies.
Yes, that is what hurts actually. Yeah,
that would hurt because they're getting more credit for it than you.
Not just credit, but they're getting paid,
And paid. Yeah. They're getting paid. So that really bothers me when it's small, when it's the small fish kind of just finding their way throughout fiber arts. There's only so many ways you can wrap cotton rope with other cotton rope. Like, it's going to look similar sometimes, but that doesn't mean that it didn't come from you and it didn't, it's such a therapeutic art.
Yeah.
I find anything involving fiber art. So whatever, someone works something out, copying something. Oh, well.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I guess this kind of goes on the same conversation path, but do you have any advice for people who are kind of just starting out now, or, I guess creative advice on how to sort of forge your own path?
I think it's really important to just start making things. And, excuse me, I think it's really important to start making things because you will inspire yourself. If you see a wall hanging or a little sculpture, something that you want to try to make, just try to make it. It doesn't mean that you have to sell it. Like, I think people get too caught up in the whole, because there are so many people selling their work now, whether it's wall hangings, whether it's tapestry, baskets, all that kind of stuff. If you get too caught up and be like, well, I'm just starting out, then you'll never even make it. So just start making something, make it for yourself, give it as a gift, and it will, if you like it, it'll go from there.
Yeah.
I feel like people feel too committed to certain crafts now. Like, it's like, well, I'm a weaver or I do this. And so you have to keep doing it. But if it's not fun, what's the point? If you're turning your hobby into something that you don't like anymore, then you need a new hobby.
Yeah. No, definitely true. If it's creatively stifling to continue something that's not giving you joy.
Yeah. I think the best thing is just to make it, and don't care if someone wants to buy it. Maybe you'll give your family members gifts for years, like I did.
Like we all did. Yeah.
Everyone has little needle felted ornaments. So, but then it will spiral from there. If you love doing it and you make it enough, someone's gonna notice. Someone's gonna see it, and if it's meant to be, it'll keep going.
Yeah, and you can see the passion in work that is made with love, like with care and with joy. You know, like you can really tell the difference, I think.
Yeah, there's a big difference between handmade and just like handmade, but mass produced as well. Like, things can be handmade, but it's like getting them out the door. But when something's very specific, I think, and that's why I think this community on Instagram is so important too, because you see that love that someone puts into it. So when you buy someone else's piece, like, you know that this is like special, and every time you look at it, it has like that little like, oh, like I feel like there's someone there behind it. You know, it's really special to get a handmade piece of work that someone poured their little heart into.
Absolutely. No, definitely. Okay, so now I have like just a bunch of random questions that have nothing to do really with like true creativity or whatever. But okay, if you were a color, what color would you be?
Oh God! Well, I didn't know they're going to be hard. I'm gonna go with a nice coral pink.
Ooh, I could see that actually
very easily.
Because you sunburned. Awesome.
That's what color I am in the summer anyway.
Good answer. What is your favorite beverage?
Well, wine. That's too easy.
Awesome. If you had one free hour a day, what would you do with it?
Make things or watch TV on my couch, because I never, ever, ever get to watch shows that aren't like Bob the Builder or Paw Patrol.
Right.
So if I have one free hour to watch grown-ups talking on TV, that would be nice.
Nice. I could understand that totally. And if you had a time machine, what point in the past or future would you want to visit?
Oh, I think I would go to the future. I would feel too much stress with all the ripple effect of going in the past.
The butterfly effect.
That movie has ruined me. I can't go back. So I think I would like to go to the future and maybe see where, like, obviously my kids, see them when they're grandparents or something. Like, just a little.
Oh, you want to go that far in the future?
Yeah, I wouldn't. Time travel. I'm getting stressed out thinking about this. No. I'd want a little glimpse and then go back.
Yeah. Funny. Okay. And then last one. What is your current favorite Instagram account? And it can be fiber or non-fiber. Maybe something inspiring.
Oh, that's a tough one. I will go with. Oh, this is too hard. I should have prepared for this one. I'll say a few of my favorite people that every time I see them pop up, then it's just like, oh, I love the aesthetic of it. I love Hello Tangle.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorite. They're such a specific. I have them behind me too.
Oh, really? Oh, that is Hello Tangle. Oh, cute.
That they ever made. Every time it pops up, the color palette, it's very cohesive, but it's different every time too.
Yeah.
So it's something that like they're in the zone, and I really like what they're doing. Oh, who else? I love String Harvest.
Oh, yeah. Great the beautiful fibers. Yep.
And she just posts so many other people's work as well. And that's something that you do as well on your feed. And I think I've commented on yours. I was like, you're just like personally finding people for me that I like, because everything you post, like it has they're all different, but they have the feel that I'm really enjoying right now.
Yeah.
So every post another artist, I'm always like, go and follow them and find their work.
Good.
Beautiful. I love other artists that support other artists.
Yeah. And like connecting everybody else, I think is just the coolest thing.
And sometimes it can get a little boring, even if someone's an amazing artist and you see the same style of oil painting every single time.
Right.
It's amazing. And the talent behind it is phenomenal. But when you're scrolling, like, we live in a very fast-paced, fickle world right now. So I like accounts that mix it up and share other arts and are just like overall positive.
Yeah.
So accounts like yours are really truly like some of my favorite things to follow.
Aw, thanks, girl. Awesome. Oh, well, this was so fun and so enjoyable getting to know you behind your work and the person behind the work. And it's so cool because like it kind of makes sense. Like just being able to talk to you and understand your perspective and the way that you work and your process and everything, it all totally makes sense.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for asking me to do this.
Of course.
I'm so excited to be part of your new podcast.
Thank you so much. Oh, I forgot to ask you, do you have anything that you wanted to promote, that's anything coming up?
I have one big project that I'm not allowed to talk about yet. Damn. I'll tell you after.
Okay.
But no, just I love doing what I'm doing right now. If people want to reach out to me, maybe I didn't make it, I haven't made it as open as I probably should to say I'm open for custom orders and collaborations. And if people want to reach out to me, I'm super easygoing. Like I can't think of something that I've been like, no, I won't do, or I love when people reach out, even if it's not something that works out. Then I have like a new friend on Instagram or whatever. So
I love it.
I think I just want to let people know that I'm pretty accessible, and maybe I should show that a little bit more throughout my work. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll include all your information, when I post the podcast and everything. So hopefully people will contact you and we can see some new collaborations coming out of you, out from you and someone else.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Meagan. I will talk to you soon. Check the show notes of each episode to get the website and Instagram for each of the fiber artists I speak with. Be sure to give them a follow. And you can view video from this podcast on niromastudio.com/thefiberartistpodcast. If you enjoy the Fiber Artist Podcast, go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening.